And there is a man standing there. I mean, literally standing there, staring into my car.
Hi, my name is Megan. Join me as we explore new places together, hike some trails, and enjoy this adventure outdoors.
Good morning and happy National Take a Hike Day. Today I'm over here at a local park and there is some lawn maintenance happening across the river here. So I apologize if you hear leaf blowers and lawn mowers. Can't really do anything about that. But today, as we go along for a little hike, I thought it would be really fun to share some stories with you all about some weird / creepy / unexplainable encounters I've had while on my adventures, whether that be travel or backpacking and hiking. So if you like this kind of video and you want to hear more weird stories that I've had while traveling, or if you have your own stories that you want to share, leave them down in the comments below. Maybe I'll make another video like this because I have plenty of stories, believe me. Or maybe I will make a video that goes through some of your stories if you have some to share. So without further ado, let's get into the first story. I gotta get this jacket off first though, because it is warming up out here. This first story might feel a little familiar to some of you because it is one of my most recent ones that happened while I was on the Appalachian Trail. So some of you might remember me alluding to this when I was at trail days, but I was hiking a certain section of trail and I often was hiking with one other person or a group of other people. There were very few days when I was actually truly by myself. This particular day, I was hiking with one other guy and we were heading towards this one particular location that we had agreed to meet up at, and there was a road cross. I think there were actually a couple of road crossings that day, but towards the end of the day, I get to the road crossing and I'm leaving out a couple of details because I don't know, if this person watches my channel or whatever, but this is just kind of a generic retelling of the story that I feel safe to tell now that I'm not on trail anymore. But I get to this road crossing, I'm probably a couple minutes ahead at this point of my hiking partner because we had actually stopped like 3 miles before to have a snack break together. And I get to this road crossing and I see this one lone truck all by itself. And as a female, whenever there's just like one truck at a very remote road crossing, alarm bells just kind of go off, and not in like a bad way. I'm just always very hyper aware of my surroundings, especially when I'm hiking solo, So I get there and I do see one guy who's there. And so, I'm just being aware, and he greets me and says the words, "I'm so glad I found you." And immediately, red flag, right? Like, I don't want anyone to find me anywhere, unless I know them. Even still, that's really weird. So he then proceeds to start talking to me. He's taking videos and pictures of me without even asking. And it's just a really, really weird encounter. And at that point, I am hoping that my friend comes by soon, but then another hiker comes from the other direction. I think he was just out for the day and helps out with the situation before my friend arrives and steers things clear. It was a very weird, very unsettling encounter, and I later found out when I got to a hostel and shared this experience with someone that there had been other reports of female hikers in the last couple of days who had had some weird encounters with supposedly the same guy. And I am sharing this story first to kind of have a twofold lesson. My other stories are not really gonna have lessons, but first is, if you're a solo hiker or if you're just a female hiker in general, always be aware of your surroundings. Always just be careful with where you are, who you're hiking with, all of that. And then my other thing is, if you encounter a solo female hiker, don't do things that are intentionally going to make her feel uncomfortable. Don't say you found her. I know that I'm putting myself out there with this channel, and I know that I've had the amazing opportunity to meet many of you, and that was amazing on trail. I loved you coming up and saying hello, but in a non-creepy way, in a non-threatening way. This guy did not even tell me where he knew me from. And also, don't just take pictures and videos recording an experience. It's always nice to ask someone if you can do so. So that's my first story. That's a little bit more into what happened at that road crossing on the Appalachian Trail. It has turned into such a beautiful day here. Oh my goodness, are these little raccoon paw prints? That is so cute. This next story kind of continues along the similar vein of solo female travel, and this was actually in a state park. I choose sometimes just to sleep in my car when I'm alone because I have a very comfortable car camping setup. So that's what I was doing at this time. I was sleeping in my car. This was which way do I want to go? I think I'm going to go this way. This was a 2-night trip, and this was the second night of the trip. I was asleep in my car, and I wake up that morning to this very uneasy feeling. And it's almost like that feeling when you wake up after having a bad dream, but you can't quite remember what the dream was. So when I sleep in my car, I often put these window shades up, but that night before, I had gotten back to my car kind of late, and it was already dark, and State Park was dark, and everybody was asleep. So I only put the window shades on my 2 back windows. I did not put them across the actual back door that shuts on my trunk. So I had that area open. That is important context for this story. So I wake up with this uneasy feeling, and I look out the back of my car. The sun had just started coming up, and there is a man standing there. I mean, literally standing there, staring into my car. We make eye contact. I'm like, am I dreaming? Am I actually awake right now? He sees that I'm looking at him. He visibly goes, and then keeps walking. My first thought was, oh my gosh, I need to leave immediately. Then I remember I'm in a state park. I'm like, oh, should I tell a ranger? I don't know. It gets even weirder. That morning I decide I'm just gonna stay there. Maybe it was just, he was trying to figure out, make sure if I was okay. I tried to assume the best, but in hindsight, I'm like, I probably should have just left. Later that morning, I'm making my coffee just at my little picnic table. I'm chilling. I don't have to leave super early that day. And this man's wife comes over to me. And I obviously at that point don't know that it's his wife, but she comes over to me and she's like, hi, I just was noticing you might be by yourself. You might be alone. Are you camping solo? As a solo female, it's pretty obvious when I am camping solo, especially if I've been around for a few days. But I never like to give that as my answer. So I say, hey, yeah, I'm here at this site by myself. I'm hanging out with other friends. We just booked different sites. And that's usually my go-to answer with that, right? Or I'm meeting up with someone, because I am never trying to tell anyone that I'm by myself. And sometimes that is the case. So then she proceeds to go back to the group who I see then that her husband is with, and I hear her maybe she was hard of hearing, I don't know, giving her the benefit of the doubt again, but I hear her over there like yelling to her friends, she's by herself, she's all alone. And at that point I know the whole campground can hear me and I don't feel safe staying there anymore. Obviously this was my last day. I was planning on staying there anyway, but if it hadn't have been, I would have packed up and left either way and cut my losses. But typically I feel pretty safe at state parks camping by myself. However, this was I don't want to say one-off because there have been other weird experiences that I've had, but this was a less common experience to have. And yeah, it was weird. They came over again to see if I was okay and to tell me how sad it was as I was packing up that I would be at a place so beautiful all alone. Just got weirder and weirder, and I told them, I'm so sorry, I have to go. And I got in my car and drove off. It was very unsettling, very unnerving. And at first I was like, oh, maybe they're going to invite me to their little breakfast potluck thing they've got going on. And maybe that wouldn't have been as weird, but it was just the fact that they were screaming to announce to the whole campground that, hey, this girl is by herself, and coming over afterwards to essentially berate me about camping solo and how dare I do that. So that was very weird and absolutely unnecessary. But that was not the only time someone invaded personal space in the middle of the night. I wish I could say it was. This one's kind of a little more funny. Like, yeah, it was kind of creepy, but this one's more on the funny side. A couple years ago, 3 of my friends and I traveled to Germany for New Year's. We went to a big New Year's celebration there, and we had the chance to explore a couple other countries. I think we were there for 10 or 12 days. I made a whole video series about that if you want to go check it out. I don't remember if I shared this story on that, but probably around 3 a.m. or so, we had just gotten back. It was super late. We wake up, I'm in like a half groggy state, and there are 2 men in our hostel room. I don't know if I said that. We were staying in a hostel. You know, it's kind of nice when there's 4 of you because oftentimes a room might be 4 people, and then we booked the room. And we were not expecting company. I need to clarify that, because if you're staying in a group dorm room, you might be expecting people to come in the middle of the night. That's not weird. We were in like our own little private room, booked for 4 people, right? Okay. So we wake up and there are these 2 guys standing there muttering in a language that I was too tired and out of it to quite understand, but it was not German. And it was not English, and it was not Italian. So I am like, I don't understand what is happening right now. And then as soon as we wake up and notice these men are there, they leave. And we're like, what? That was very weird. So we're like kind of chattering with each other, like, what just happened? Maybe he had the wrong room. And then they come back probably about an hour later. And we find out essentially later on that whoever was at the desk had accidentally given the wrong room to either us or him, or I had language barrier there, so we didn't really fully understand. But essentially he thought we were in his room and they were trying to sort out the situation. It didn't really need to happen in our room, but it was honestly hilarious. At no point in that story did I feel threatened. Like, he was with one of the hostel staff. Maybe he had come into our room before and noticed that there were just like 4 girls sleeping in all the beds and had left. But it was so funny. And that's a story that we like to laugh about, because we've had other experiences during, you know, van life at other hostels that have been just, you know, stories like that we can laugh about. But yeah, so random men showing up in your hostel dorm room that you thought was a private room. Yay. All right, let's get into story number 4. Those first 3 stories were kind of along the lines of sketchy people doing sketchy things. And this last story, I'm honestly still not 100% sure of what to make of it. if ghost stories slash like paranormal activity is not your thing, I think this is gonna be my last story, so you might just want to end the video here. But again, I don't know what was actually happening during this experience, but it took place on a family road trip up to New York to see the iconic Niagara Falls. Now, we had booked, I will be honest, we stayed in some, very affordable accommodations as a family, and I traveled a lot with my sister, my 2 cousins, my aunt, and my mom. So that was our crew for this trip. So we had a 2-bedroom suite at kind of an older hotel that, to be honest, we didn't know much about, but they had a great discount, and that was very nice. So we booked this place. It was pretty close, and we had 2 bedrooms again. So I get there, and it was one of those places that had a journal that people could write about their experiences and recommendations and all of that. I start reading this journal, and there are so many paranormal experiences that people had where they felt like a cold presence brush past them. They had experienced coat hangers rattling in the middle of the night. They had experienced weird noises coming from the attic. Now, this is a hotel, so I can understand like weird noises. Maybe there's an air vent rattling the coat hangers. I have a logical explanation for all of this, right? So I think my cousin or somebody decided to open the attic just to make sure there was nobody up there, which that completely understandable, fair, right? We did not want to be surprised by a squatter. And I believe we were like playing kind of these pranks on each other. Like, I remember at one point we hung a poncho up in the bathroom and scared my little cousin into thinking I was a ghost, right? So our either second to last night there or our last night there, we had this experience that I still cannot describe what exactly happened to this day. So we were getting ready for bed, and my mom and my sister and I were all sharing a room, and I think my mom and I were in one of the king beds, and then my sister was in the smaller twin cot rollaway by herself. That night, we hear my aunt in the other room yell, "The coat hangers are rattling, the coat hangers are rattling." So we get up, we check it out, there's nothing happening in there. It's all quiet on the western front, whatever. A little bit later, my mom hears some commotion happening outside. It's just some guys fighting in the parking lot. We're fine, but we're already a little bit on edge, I guess, like kind of listening out because we're a little spooked at this point. And a couple minutes later, my mom and I'm pretty sure my sister's asleep at this point, but my mom and I feel like this really cold breeze. I'm like getting goosebumps as I'm telling the story. We feel this really cold breeze enter our room, and something just feels not right all of a sudden. And then we turn on the light. There are handprints appearing on the bottom of our bed. I am freaking out. I'm screaming. And my mom is just like, she starts praying, and then everything stops. It was so weird, so creepy. And to this day, I don't have an explanation for it other than possibly something supernatural or paranormal. So I've touched on this before. I'm personally a Christian. I believe in the supernatural world, but I don't have an explanation. And I think that's okay for exactly what happened there. But to this day, it's one of the most vivid memories. I think I had to be around like 13 or so. So I definitely remember it very vividly. And I'll see if I can find a picture from that trip. That'd be fun. But that might be before I started having all the backup for my photos. But we bought those super iconic I Heart New York shirts and took some pictures by Niagara Falls. But that was probably to this day one of the weirder travel experiences that I've had. That's borderline on the paranormal. I can't say I love how loud urban parks often are. Like, the highway is literally right there, but I'm very grateful that we have several parks like this around where I live that I can just come and enjoy. I think I'm gonna end this video here with those 4 stories and the beautiful sound of the highway noise beside me. But remember, if you have an adventure story that's weird or creepy or paranormal or fits into that criteria loosely, I would love to hear your experience, and I might even make a video about that if I get enough good stories. So drop them down in the comments below, or feel free to make a video on, Instagram or something like that and tag me in it if you think it's too long to type out. I would love to hear your experiences on trail, even though they might not have been so great to experience. But thank you again for watching today's video. I really appreciate the support from viewers like you. It means a lot to content creators, and I take the time to read through all your comments. I try to respond to all of them. So it is very, 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 very appreciated by me when you guys drop a like and a comment below. And if this kind of content is stuff that you enjoy watching, travel, adventure, lifestyle, adventure races, and all of that, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I hope to see you again very soon for another adventure outdoors. Bye.